Hack Shack Quick Fix.
Okay, welcome to what I hope will be a retro Hack Shack quick fix. What I have here today is a Q-Fire. Not sure if I can get it to focus there. This is a Q-Fire, which was a CD-ROM. I think they also made hard drives. It was from a company called QPS. And this happens to be a 121032X CD-RW. And it appears to be just a CD-ROM with a CD-RW with a FireWire connection in the back. So this was probably, you can probably tell by the styling what this was for, or what it was marketed to, especially given that it's FireWire, number one, and the fact that it has this transparent coloring. This was marketed towards people back in the around 2000 era that were buying iMacs, and they needed external storage for their iMacs read-write capability drive. So that's what this is for. That's what it was marketed for. I believe it was pretty expensive when it first came out, something like $499 or something. And I'm not sure if it's a SCSI CD-RW or an IDE, but there's definitely, I can see a plate or a PCB in the back here that's doing some sort of translation between whatever protocol the drive speaks natively and FireWire. Now, so I found this at a Goodwill. They were asking $12 for it or something, and I talked them down to, I think, $3, or it didn't even have a power supply. I bought a power supply for it. When I plug this in, though, the power supply gets hot, the cord gets hot, and anytime you have a, if you have a cord that gets hot or a power supply that gets hot, pretty quickly after you plug it in, that's a good sign that there's a short somewhere, either in the power supply or in the device. And in this case, if I leave the power brick just plugged in on its own without plugging it in here, it's fine. It doesn't get hot. The cord doesn't get hot. When I plug it in, it gets hot. And obviously this isn't working when I plug it in either. So I'm going to try to take this apart and see if I can figure out if there's something blown on this board back here. Worst case, I take the drive out and use it separately, but it would be kind of neat. I've got an iMac that I picked up that I want to do an episode on. So if I can get at least the power problem fixed, then I could use this on that episode coming up. So let's see if I can break this open and fix it. There appears to be some tabs. The way this is designed, these side pieces and this front piece go around the rest of this plastic and kind of clip into place. So I'm hoping if I take these off and this off, that I can then separate these halves and fix whatever's going wrong in there. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, well that part was easy. There's also a warranty void. If seal is broken, this is tamper proof. So what's going to happen? I guess the warranty is void now because we're going to take this thing apart. Well, it's all held together by plastic clips, and so it's pretty easy to get apart, I must say. And we're finally in. On the inside, it's IDE. So they're doing some sort of, this board does IDE to FireWire, but this is just an IDE CD-RW drive. You could use this in a PC or anything. It doesn't have to be a Mac. They did use the correct color codes here, so I can take a look at that, but these look like they're just passing through for the most part. Over to the power connector on the drive. So there's no magic here. It doesn't look like anyway. And then there's what looks like 5 volts that's going over to this board to power the board. The board itself is made by QPS, even though the drive is a Plextor drive. So maybe the plastics and this little board is QPS's premium addition to what's going on here. I don't know. So I think what I'm going to do is eliminate this board first by simply removing that 5 volts there that powers the board. That way, if there's a short somewhere here on the board, I can eliminate that from being the short circuit on the power on the that's causing the cord to heat up. Now I can plug this in and just see if I can get the drive to function and eject without this plugged in. And then if that's the case, that means the problem's here on this board, and I can go back in and diagnose and see what's going on with that particular board. Yeah, I think I'm also going to, just to be complete, I will also unplug this connector here. So with everything disconnected, that out of the way, I'm just going to plug this in and see what happens. At the very least, we should get a LED that lights up. Well, it's hard to tell. I'm not getting an LED lighting up, so let's just check the voltages out. Okay, that's 5 volts there, although it's negative 5 volts. That's odd. Aha. So on the 12 volt rail, I'm only getting 6 volts. So it could be the power brick after all. That's really weird. So I connected this up to my benchtop power supply, and unfortunately can't get it any closer. And get a little closer so you can see it. So I've got it connected to my homemade benchtop power supply, turned it on, and bingo, light is green. And I'm just going to measure and see what these voltages are. And I'm getting 5 volts there. And if I make some room, come over here. Interesting. Oh, there we go. The problem was that my lead was either unplugged or had a loose connection or something. I just fiddled with it a little bit, and it seems fine now. So that was odd. I was like, why am I not getting 12 volts? Oh, I'm not getting 12 volts again. Couldn't be the lead. Well, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I'm going to eliminate this switch as a possible cause of a short or something flaky going on, because that's just weird. Well, this is embarrassing. I think I figured out what happened, or why I wasn't getting the right readings. But it's basically, what I did was I took the switch out because I thought the switch was bad, although I couldn't figure out why that would have that particular effect. And then I was, probing around, and I noticed that when I use one of the grounds, the one closest to 12 volts, bingo, I get 12 volts. And when I use the other one, I get funky readings. Why is that? Well, when I took the wires apart, it allowed me to take a look at how everything was actually wired up. And it turns out that these, even though they don't need to be necessarily, these are separate ground connections back to the power supply. So this whole time I was trying to figure out what was going on, but it's because I don't have any ground on this. It was just this 12 volt was just said there was no reference. It was just sitting there floating around. So I'm going to hook up another ground wire, test this out, make sure it works, and then see if I can figure out what's going on. Hey, 12 volts. Perfect voltages, no issues when you have both of your grounds connected. All right, now that I know the voltage is okay, I'm just going to plug this in and see if I can get it to spin up. Now, don't do as I do in this case. I really probably should have thicker wires connected than these test leads, but this should be okay just for a quick test. And I'm just going to be careful and see what happens. Nope. As soon as I do that, it shorts out the power supply. By the way, a lot of times power supplies, they have an over voltage or some corrective measures to shut the power supply down safely. And if you just let them sit for a few minutes, turn it back on, it should come back on, unless you've really blown something bad. Okay, so I just pulled another, this is actually a DVD rewritable drive that I pulled out of the garage. Just going to see if I have the same thing happens with this. Again, I'm just trying to isolate what's going on. Okay, so I plug that in. Drive tries to power up, and it's working. No problem. And as thin as these cables are, they're not having They're not getting hot or anything, so not putting too much load on them. So that seems to be working. So the problem is actually in the drive itself, probably not with the electronics. So hey, we're one step closer. Well, just taking a look at this board, I mean, there's nothing obvious on the back of it that is indicating a short. I'm going to take a look at the other side. There's a lot of surface mount components on here. It's mostly surface mount. So it's going to be pretty hard to go through and diagnose anything obvious like a blown capacitor. But I'm just going to take this off and take a look at both sides anyway, because it's a great way to learn about what's going on here. Here's the underside of the board. Again, I'm not seeing anything. There's some surface mount caps here. They look okay though. I'm not seeing anything that would suggest leaky caps. And this is from 2000. Seems like the caps are getting a little better by 2000, but yeah, I'm just not seeing anything that screams out at me where the problem is. I'm not seeing any corrosion, any leakage. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be a quick fix because there's really not a whole lot going on here that I can see. Could be one of these chips is shorted out. I mean, it could be lots of things. It's just not worth going through, I don't think, for me anyway, to go through and see exactly what's going on. So what I'm going to do instead is take a trip to the local thrift store or a few local thrift stores and see if I can find something similar in a similar vein to this drive, and maybe since it's just IDE, I can take it back and plug it in and see if I can get that thing working. We'll see. Okay, so it's now the next day. I did make a run to 2 thrift stores to see if I could find a replacement drive, and I ended up finding this. So let me take these out one at a time and show you. Well, let me just show you this first. This isn't part of the deal. I just happened to find this, which is great. This printer cable, really nice one actually from Belkin. Gold plated, $2.99, not a bad deal. Can always use an extra printer cable. All right, so this is what was in the box. This was sitting there open, and I was looking for a replacement drive, and so this popped up, immediately because it's the right size. Obviously, it's a CD drive. Didn't know what it was. When I took a closer look, this case was off. It's actually missing the front part of the case anyway, but it has a similar board on the back, and you can see there's this has FireWire and USB, and it came with power adapter. So when I was looking at this before, the power supply that I had gotten was bad, so I can test this one out. It does have the same ratings, 5 volt and 12 volt, both 1.5 amps. And it looks like the pinout is the same as the other one. Cord for the power supply, and then it comes with a FireWire cable and a USB cable. So this will make it easier to test. I can hook it up to USB and see if it works. So I think, also some random Allen wrench, random shield of some sort, and some feet. Whoops, I can't even get it. And some little rubber feet. So I don't know if somebody... I think somebody bought this. Maybe they took it apart, or maybe they were putting it together and just didn't finish. But let's test this drive and test the power supply and just see if they work. If they do, then I can just put this in the other, put this whole thing in the other enclosure and call it a day. So this thing has a nice indicator light on it. It's not getting warm, and it's got a nice long cord. It's longer than the other one. So what I'm going to do to test this, I'm just going to plug it into, since I already have this kind of stripped down to bare bones here, I'm just going to plug this in and just read the voltages on the cord. And interesting, -5 volts on the 5 volt rail. Huh. -6. Maybe that other power supply wasn't bad. -6 volts on the 12 volt rail. Isn't that interesting? I'm going to plug this into to the drive and test it out. Okay, so testing this with this backplane, everything working, I am getting the right voltages. So I'm getting 12 volts and 5 volts where it's supposed to be, but this drive isn't working either. Well, one more thing I found. Whoever was messing with this before hooked up the IDE connector backwards, which is why when this was powered up, the drive wouldn't power up. So, that's another issue. Seems to be working now, but that's why it wouldn't work initially when I tried to power it up, because the power connector, the IDE connector, was flipped around and on backwards. Now that that's done, you can test it on the computer. Windows 10 gives me a little doodle-doot sound, which tells me it found something. Let's see if it reads anything. Yep, here we go. VLC media player is coming up, so it recognizes that there's something in the drive. And there we go. So I don't want to get any copyright matches, but it's definitely reading over USB, so that's good news. Well, it looks like I'm going to have to cut this. Try to keep this in focus. So I've marked the position where I need to cut it. You could do this with a Dremel. That's a lot of dremeling. So I've got an easier way. About 6 years ago, I founded a makerspace, and we happen to have a bandsaw. So I should be able to cut through this nice and even all the way through. And so I'm going to take this down to the makerspace and cut it on the bandsaw. The side of the case was uneven, so I decided to use a piece of wood just to keep everything nice and straight as I put it through the saw. And then I wanted to test fit the component that was going to go in the back, just to make sure it was wide enough, and it was. And then I just needed to trim up the top part of the case, because it also just needed a little slot cut in it. Okay, so I'm back from the makerspace. I did a rough test fit while I was there, but I'm a little worried because this case does have a bit of a curve at the back, and not only is this old adapter that went in here shorter this way, it's also shorter this way as well. So this is horizontal, it'll be shorter vertical. So may have to do a little bit more hacking to get it in there, but I'm just going to do a better fit to see if it actually will fit in there. It's very close. One side's on. The other side's on. Hey, look at that. I didn't think that was going to fit at first. It does bow up here. I don't know if you can see that there's a gap right here, but I left the little lip on the plastic that was holding the old module in place, and that actually just bent up enough, was flexible enough to bend up, that's actually holding that whole thing in place. So, there's a little gap here. I might cover that with a little bit of plastic, but I think I can either leave it like that, or I can cut this shield to match. And I think I'll do that and then put this back on the back, and this project should be done. Very cool. All right, and there it is. Looks like I need to clean up some sticker residue there. But otherwise, it went back together fine. You can see the front here is, if it focuses, is not, unfortunately, not compatible with the bezel, the Q-Fire. I even tried to put the Q-Fire in just on that part, and it just wouldn't fit. It wouldn't close with this on there. So just not compatible with the way that this particular thing was designed, and the buttons don't line up on this either. So, but not a big deal. I mean, I was able to salvage the look and feel, and I know it does work, even though it was a little glitchy on USB 1. That's probably just meant really for transferring files. But I will be testing the FireWire out on this as soon as I get that G3 up and running. So this has been a quick fix, although not that quick and not really able to fix it the way I wanted. But the whole point of this is just to kind of document my process going through getting something working again that wasn't working. So far, my track record on these hasn't been good. I've put almost as much effort into these as I have my regular videos. So hopefully these will get shorter and tighter over time. and I hope you appreciate them or find them interesting in any way. If not, hey, it's out there. And I can go back and reference it if I was wondering, hey, how did I do that bezel on the back of that thing that one time? So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.